Okay, starting YouTube here. So welcome YouTube. Just waiting for everything to get settled as far as videos. And Great Gold, hello Great Gold. And we have the same number of people here on YouTube at this moment. So welcome to our Friday live stream, adult beverage night, and we're going to talk about mobile OSs, not Android and iOS. We're going to talk about everything but Android and iOS options tonight. So welcome, and we'll see who's here. Say hello, and hello, Dustin. How are you doing, Dustin? Okay, so everyone, if you're around, just say hi. Don't be quiet here. So I tend to want to know who my audience is. Fear Lutzi, hello. So yeah, so we're not like a normal YouTuber here. I come from a live stream world, so I'm used to
Okay, so everyone, if you're
interacting with the audience here. And sorry, the mic was on. First time here, psychedelic professor. I'll answer your question once we get everything started here. Norseman on Periscope. Hello, Great Gold, and welcome on Periscope. Big privacy. You're the big privacy advocate, or I am. Who's the privacy? Well, obviously I am, but are you also an advocate? So yes. So, Mr. Psychedelic Professor, what is your interest in 4G routers? Because I actually just helped somebody with that, and the one I suggested was a Netgear 4G LTE router. So I believe it was around 149 bucks. So yeah, so Netgear was the one I saw on Amazon, and it had an Ethernet port. So in theory, then you can attach one of these um, these VPN routers to it, because you can just plug it into the wire, and this becomes the Wi-Fi, not the router. The router itself from Netgear, the LTE router, is Ethernet only, which is actually good because Ethernet is safer. If you want to be safer, to be honest, we're kind of stuck with using mobile, but it is safer to use a wired connection. But it's not possible with these because they don't have a wired connection, and you have to go wireless on these, and it's actually safer to go wired if you can. Tired of her Android device and of Google. She's keen to get a dumb phone or a Linux phone. I'll get her a PinePhone. I will talk about all that and talk about the status today and what I talked about in my video about the PinePhone and where that stands and why that versus one of these existing phones like the Nexus 5, which already comes with Ubuntu Touch. So I've been selling these. What I've been doing is preloading Linux on it, and I've been selling these phones that I've been getting used. So Librem 5 and PinePhone. Okay, so hello Jay. So yeah, we're gonna talk about a little bit about all that, and we'll. My brother told me about you last year, and this is my second time in here. Last year, Aurora was on YouTube. I mean, sorry, on Periscope. I haven't been. I only did YouTube this year. So for the last 4 years or so, or 4.5 years, I've been broadcasting on Periscope and Twitter. So really just really been using YouTube only this year, and I'm happy to say that as of tomorrow, we this channel will be at 6,000 subscribers. So I'm right now at I think 5960. So I have like 40 more to go, and so tomorrow we will be at 6,000 subs, which is quite an accomplishment on YouTube in less than a year. I've only been on YouTube for 10 months. I had the channel, but I didn't start putting regular content on here until about January 13th or so. So I've only been here about 10 months. And so since I started doing YouTube, it's been actively, that's been 10 months, and we slowly climbed, and it's been a slow process at the beginning, but it's picked up now, and now we're going to be at 6,000. Hello, Mario. We're going to be at 6,000 subscribers by tomorrow, and I'm expecting maybe 8,000 subscribers by Christmas, and probably 10,000 subscribers by January. So we're really, really close to that, and it's the pace is kind of picked up. So at the moment, it's looking like 10,000 subscribers is within reach sometime in January at the current pace, and maybe it'll go faster, but at the moment, that's what it looks like. And that's a pretty fast pace, guys. That's on YouTube. That is not nothing to sneeze at. There's been many channels with 50,000 subscribers, and they're not moving anywhere near as fast as this channel. I'm basically moving as fast as some channels with 100,000. So it's moving very, very fast. And to slow down a little bit, it was actually moving at 3,000 subscribers a month last month, but slow down a little bit. So thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Angel. Thank you, EZ. Is that EZ? I gotta use glasses here. So anyway, this is a multicast. We're broadcasting on Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube. And I just realized something, that when I did the broadcast, the pre-broadcast where I'm just sitting here waiting for the broadcast to start is actually on Twitch. But no bloopers to see because I wasn't doing anything. So if you go and look at the bloopers on Twitch, you'll probably see nothing. So thank you, Angel. Thank you, Kevin. Hello, Kevin Arnold Ashburner. Thank you. So we just to talk about where the week has gone and what I talked about in my video. I told you I was on jury duty. And I was, and I thought that I wasn't going to be able to make a video because of jury duty. But when I got to the jury, the courthouse, the cases that were assigned to the jurors have been brought there were all canceled. So basically, I was just there for the morning. And hello, Perry Verse. I left you a message, Perry Verse. The Nexus 5, this Nexus 5 is compatible with Australia. Left you a note, Perry Verse. So you don't have to look for a Nexus 5. You didn't check these models, and they actually are compatible with Australia. And I verified it. And somebody asked me if it's compatible with New Zealand. Yes, this is compatible with New Zealand. Somebody asked me if it was compatible with India. Yes. The US version of the Nexus 5 is compatible with India, New Zealand, and Australia. I don't know if it's compatible with the UK. That is the only question. So, and we'll talk about these phones and in context with some of the video I did about the PinePhone. So what happened this week? So jury duty was canceled. I was able to get back to work, and I was doing a lot of research on the solutions for 2019-2020, and the thing that happened over the weekend was this past weekend, the PinePhone went on sale, and I actually it kind of caught me kind of like unprepared, and I didn't really know about it in advance. And it was after broadcast, and I realized that was it last Saturday? It was after broadcast, and I was looking at my stuff, and then I found out that the PinePhone went on sale, and so I bought one. I bought one immediately. So and it was and I made a video about that. And the PinePhone that I bought is actually slated for delivery in December. I don't have to wait in 2020. I'm gonna get it in December. Hopefully, like mid-December. There's already videos about the factory constructing it, so they're probably making it now, or maybe it's already made. They're making 3,000 in this batch, and it's going to be available for shipping, possibly in a few days. For some of them, I saw some of them already made, and I probably will be in that first batch, since I got in there in the first few hours of them selling the PinePhone. So I'm like, this is really cool because I'm getting the PinePhone. Now, some of you are saying, well, maybe I should wait for the PinePhone, or maybe I should buy the PinePhone versus, let's say, one of these Nexus 5s. And so we're going to talk about that and see what the options are and why, and see, what the choices are and what you could get if you waited for a PinePhone. Because some of the surprises is that this is a Nexus 5. This is actually probably faster than a PinePhone. So, and the PinePhone comes with no OS. It's not loaded with anything at the moment. It's just hardware. So you have to know how to load the OS on it. And no OS is finalized as of the moment. So we'll discuss that as well. And is the PinePhone usable right side of the box? Usable, probably, I'm going to guess, and this is just my guess, is yes, I bought the PinePhone. My guess is that the PinePhone, if you get it in December, may take a month before you can actually use all the features. Maybe I'm gonna guess, they may make some final tweaks to it, and it'll probably be mostly usable sometime in January. That's my guess. So that's just my expectation of it. And if you're not the type to build like Raspberry Pis, then you probably shouldn't get a PinePhone yet. And it's not necessarily any faster than these. In fact, it's slower. And you actually that Nexus isn't for sale though. It has my name. I have four Nexus Periverse. So I have 4 left. And I believe one is already reserved for you. So, got 4 left. So, I don't know if I'm going to buy a batch yet, because this batch took a while to sell. So, but I have four left. So, I'm using an old Nexus 5 awaiting a Librem 5. Is there a way to spoof IMEI no Linux phone? No. If you spoof your IMEI, you're going to go to jail in the U.S. Magoo. 20. Yeah, I think the one that was an expert at spoofing IMEIs was Kevin Mitnick. So if you want to learn how to spoof IMEI, talk to Kevin Mitnick. He can probably do it just on the keyboard. He probably just punch a bunch of numbers on the keyboard. Probably steal the manual from AT&T, T-Mobile, and all that, and then he can spoof the IMEI for you. But yes, he did it so many times, and I think they said 20 years for each occurrence, and so they said he's going to be in jail for 100 years. But Kevin Mitnick was only in jail for 5 years, so they probably gave him 6 months for every occurrence. They probably said it was too much. So yes, so don't do IMEI. I don't mess with that. So I'm not going to go mess with IMEI. Somebody said, well, in India, it's not illegal to modify IMEIs. Find out for your own country. But for me, it's not hard. Not getting caught is the hard part. Yeah, you have to find the document to change IMEI. I'm sure there's a document for it, internal document inside the phone carrier, and or for the builders of the phone, if you have an insider at LG, they can probably give you the document that explains how to do it on these phones. I'm sure it's just punching a bunch of digits on there, and then you can spoof the IMEI. So, but no, that's this is why you don't really worry about burner phones, because what's the point? So yeah, you can spoof the MZ, but you cannot spoof the IMEI. So if you're gonna spoof the IMEI, you might as well just buy some burner phones and then throw it away after. So it's kind of pointless to why are you spoofing an IMEI for when you just buy some cheap old phones, and there it is. You've spoofed the IMEI. Fairphone Open. I've not, Fairphone, I haven't seen a Fairphone. I think that's more of a European kind of thing. So I haven't seen one. I don't think that's something that I expect to find in the US. And there's some other model like BQ, it's like a Spanish phone. So not my expectation for the US. And since 90% of my viewers are in the US, then I'm mostly more aware of what you can do in the US. Hello, Toll, first day on Periscope. So anyway, so the PinePhone came out, and I bought one. And some of you need to ask yourself the question why you would think about a PinePhone versus some of these other used phones. And the question really is, what does the PinePhone offer? And there, in some ways, it could offer some advantages, in some ways not, because the PinePhone is actually slower. Remember, the PinePhone is more like a Raspberry Pi. So the processor is probably slower than this Nexus 5, and definitely a lot slower than an iPhone. An iPhone is blazingly fast. So, I had a millennial try out the Nexus 5 with Ubuntu Touch on it, and the response I got was, I'm not a fan. So, and the reason, of course, is this is a 2013 phone, so it's not new. So it's not going to be as blazingly. These people are expecting the phone to be like so snappy when you click on it and there's no delay. And you can't really have that with an old phone because the internet's slow and everything is slow. So if you're expecting that kind of performance, you're going to want your iPhone and Android. But, there's a reason we don't want the Apple and Android. It's because of the the trackers. So, the convenience and the fastest phone and all that have a cost. And the cost is that your entire life is being tracked and recorded. So if that's what you want, then you really should stick to an iPhone and Android, because they will record your life, and if that's okay with you, then you're stuck there. So you're gonna remain sheep the rest of your life, because to you, having a platform where you're being tracked every second is really fun. So if that's your intent and you don't really think about the privacy aspects of this, then we're kind of done here. You don't need to listen to me. I want to see what you think of the PinePhone once you use it. I have an expectation of what the PinePhone, and I'm going to explain to you the difference between that and, let's say, Nexus 5. And let me just tell you something that's kind of interesting, especially for you, Mario, because you have a Nexus 5. One of the interesting things about the PinePhone is that they expect the first shipment of the PinePhone for the consumer, because I got the pre-consumer model. It's the Braveheart edition, which is really no OS. It comes just hardware, no OS on it, and it's expected to be shipped in March with Ubuntu Touch. So basically in March it's going to look exactly like this and probably just as fast as this. So you're actually going to wonder, well, why do I need to get a PinePhone when I can get these for about the same price, with software already loaded? So why would you want? And they don't perform any better. So why would I need to have a PinePhone versus this? And the answer in a moment. But let me just a huge debate already been cut here. So okay, let me see. Okay, so why was that filtered huge debate? Did you do any? Oh, because you said SHHIT. No wonder. I was wondering what bad word you used in there. Okay, so now, what is the advantage of a PinePhone versus some of these existing solutions? If you're going to get an Ubuntu Touch, it's going to be the same. So for some of you who already have a Nexus 5 with Ubuntu Touch, it's not going to be any different with a PinePhone. They'll probably work about the same and so on. But the difference is this is not perfect right now. One of the main issues with the Nexus 5 at the moment, and this might get solved very shortly here, but as of today, the biggest issue with the Nexus 5 is Bluetooth for calling. So there's a little bit of a driver incompatibility with the calling side, the calling Bluetooth. The Bluetooth works for music. I was just testing it tonight and in the car, and I was able to play music and have it on Bluetooth. Except you can't control it with your car controls, but you can get the music started on this and it will play the Bluetooth. You have to adjust the volume from this initially, but it works and it sounds good. No real issues with having the music on here. And the PinePhone, what's so different about the PinePhone is that the PinePhone itself is a pure Linux device. In fact, the Bluetooth driver, the Wi-Fi driver, the display driver, the GPS and all that already have Linux drivers. Most of the drivers, in fact, for those of you who may not be aware of this, the people at Pine64 make it's called Rock 64, which is a competitor to the Raspberry Pi. It's called a Rock 64. So the Rock 64 board is already a mainline Linux device. There's already support on Debian and so on the Pine64, and it has Wi-Fi support and all that. So the drivers for the display, all that, it's already existing. Bluetooth is already existing on the Pine64 board. So there's really a lot of compatibility already right off the bat. I actually don't know what else would be incompatible with the PinePhone. I think the only major one is the display. And I think that's already been proven to work. So my guess is that most of the things will already be working on the PinePhone from Ubuntu Touch. So Marius from Ubuntu Touch was already displaying an example of the PinePhone running with the display, and the display was one of the main issues that were not compatible. I don't expect any problem with Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth and all that, because it's a standard Pine64 chip standard board. So all of that will actually be already existing in. I checked the actual specs. I checked the camera modules, the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. There were already existing drivers for them in Linux. So those are actually all pretty good. Now I don't know about the baseband, but the baseband. So I actually have some extra information here because I was lucky enough to have a chat with the founder of Pine64. So I talked to the founder of Pine64. His name is TL. And TL, apparently he designed most of the Pine 64, and then just hired engineers to go finish it up for him. But he actually, uh, apparently he's an electrical engineer, and he already designed most of it, and it's really based on what I know. The Pine 64 already has pretty much most of the chips and everything, and all they had to do was kind of realign it and change the PCB to make it look like it could fit a phone form factor. So I talked to TL, and again he's the president and founder of Pine 64, and I also talked to Lucas. Lucas is the one you see on the internet talking about Pine 64. He uses the handle at Pine 64, and you see him talking on various forums, and so Lucas was also so Lucas introduced himself to me on YouTube. So I actually got a chance to talk to them, and so because of this, then one of the things that I expect will be different from the Pine 64 in this phone is the Bluetooth driver might work better. So that's a big plus already over the Nexus 5. But having said that, there's actually a new Nexus 5, there's a new driver coming down from Debian that's going to be released on, and they're testing it now, at least on UB ports. So they may have already solved the Bluetooth problem and may be available about the same time that the PinePhone will come out. And just to again explain what the issues are, this phone actually works, and there's a few bugs, but the same bugs will exist on the PinePhone. But for usability, the main issue that you will find on this is that you cannot do Bluetooth with phone calling, at least on the Nexus 5. Now, why is that important? Well, because in California, if you use your phone without Bluetooth hands-free, then you can get a ticket. So that's kind of a big deal in California. So I have not been using Bluetooth on this, and that's the only big negative that I've experienced with the phone. Other than that, I'm going to tell you a little later about what I learned from using it, because I actually spent a bit of time really learning the OS and seeing if I can do Linux things on it, and I'm happy to say that I'm now comfortable enough with all the Linux things on it. If you're on Braxme, I actually made a room on Braxme that has all the details of this. If you go to the Gadgets open community, I have a Gadgets room, Gadgets chat on Brax. I actually have a link to the room. The room is called Ubuntu Touch, and I'm putting my notes in there on how to configure this using Linux commands and kind of customize it with Linux. And so this is one of the advantages of this, because you have full control over it. Not full control, but enough control on Linux that you can do kind of basic things that you expect to be able to do in Linux, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, so let me just pause and look at these questions in here. So what else does Huge Byte say? Scenery. They will pull back the curtains. They will move the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theater. Okay. So what is Odroid exactly? Not sure what Odroid is. I mean, there's so many of these. I'm not following every Android OEM. It's not really relevant. They're all kind of the same. So if it's another Android OEM ROM or another custom ROM, then they're kind of all the same. My comments will be the same as for Lineage OS. So anyway, that's where that stands. Now, so anyway, so it's my expectations. This is what I did. So hello, entire Meyer. So I got a hello, Michael Bathurst. Who else did I miss on Stalking Horse? Who else did I miss on YouTube here. Donnie, hello Donnie, and many of you are Mad Cow, losing Ba Moirang. So all of you on YouTube, you're not talking. Talk. Don't be afraid to talk on YouTube. Just say hi and introduce yourself. So anyway, Michael, that's not that doesn't apply. Okay, that is not a tech question. Let's. Odroid is a series of single-board computers and tablet computers created by hard kernel company located in South Korea, even though the name Odroid is a portmanteau of Open plus Android. No wonder I'm not interested. It's because the Android part of it. Okay. Hello, chillin' fun smart. Hello. So Eagle Source. Okay, so so that's where that stands, and what am I gonna get? Hello, Sir Cal. What am I gonna get with the PinePhone? So let's say I get the PinePhone, sometime in December. Let's say I get it. I'm lucky enough to get it, like mid-September. If I get it in mid-September, it does not come with an OS. It does not come with an OS. Sovereign Dirt. It does not come with an OS, and so you're just gonna get a hardware, and that's enough to cause panic for many people. Like, Zach, what do I do with this hardware? So you're gonna get a piece of hardware. So and if you don't know anything, that's gonna be kind of complex to deal with that. It's actually not that bad, and I will tell you what I'll do with it, and then you'll see if this is worth it for you to do. So I'm going to first, let me make a comment. The PinePhone that's being shipped out shortly, the Braveheart edition, is the same hardware that's going to be shipped out in March. So I don't expect, at least they said they weren't expecting to make any hardware changes to this batch. So basically the Braveheart edition, as far as hardware goes, is already finalized. Okay, so it's going to be finalized. It's already finalized. So whatever you're going to get here in December will be the same one that they'll be releasing in March. Well, what's the difference? The difference is that the one in December will not have an SD card with anything preloaded. It's just going to be the phone without anything. So in a way we lose out a little bit because an SD card costs $6-7. So we lose out on $6-7 of a free SD card. So anyway, if I get the PinePhone in December, I'm going to say, what am I going to put on here? And at the moment, the one that's already ready to use, ready to load at least, is, and they already have an image for it, is Ubuntu Touch. So Ubuntu Touch already has a disk image, and the disk image can be used to burn an SD card, micro SD card that, this is a micro SD card right here. They already have you can burn a micro SD card and insert it into the phone, just like this Raspberry Pi. This is a Raspberry Pi, and all you do with a Raspberry Pi is insert the SD card and you boot it and it runs. So that's exactly how the PinePhone works. It's kind of like a Raspberry Pi. You plug in the SD card and you're all set. It boots up. Now here's the nice thing about it. There's a couple of OSs that you can load on it, although the other one is not quite ready yet. So the two OSs that are semi-running, so one you can play with, the other one is more in a more advanced stage. The first one is Ubuntu Touch, like I mentioned, and the second one is Plasma Mobile from KDE. KDE makes Plasma Mobile, and it runs over Postmarket OS, and Postmarket OS already has an image that runs on the PinePhone dev kit. So with that, you can also burn a Plasma Mobile image. So Plasma Mobile on using Postmarket OS is a Linux distro that is based on Alpine Linux, if I recall, and which means I can actually have, at least at the beginning, 2 SD cards, one for Alpine Postmarket OS with Plasma Mobile, and another one with Ubuntu Touch, and I can even make a new one for Loon OS, which is another one that it's getting there in terms of level of being usable. So those 3 are in the works to be usable. Ubuntu Touch is probably ahead because most of Ubuntu Touch is already running, and Plasma Mobile has not yet been used on any phone, whereas Ubuntu Touch is being used now on existing phones. And all you have to do is burn multiple SD cards, and I can actually try different OSs just by inserting the little chip in there, which is really, really cool. And it kind of gives me a chance to try different interfaces and see if it works. Now, as I expected, the Nexus 5 is probably a little faster. So you're not going to get, if you want something snappy like an iPhone, it's not going to be near that. An iPhone is very, very fast. So, I mean, I can compare. I have an iPhone here, and you go to the browser. The browser is so fast on an iPhone. It's several times faster than a Nexus or a OnePlus One. So an iPhone is definitely very fast. And I have an iPhone 10 here. This is not an iPhone 11 Pro. The iPhone 11 Pro is probably even twice as fast as this. So the iPhone is definitely, number 1 in speed, and probably followed by some modern Android. So if you're expecting, like, you swipe and you expect the swiping to be extremely fast, no, it's probably not that. But it's it's fast. It's fast enough for like doing the normal things that you expect on the phone, and doing all this. The problem that you would get on the phone is more related to the browser, because that's what we're going to use the most on Ubuntu Touch. As a browser is not as fast because it doesn't have a fast CPU, so it can't render things as fast as and the Wi-Fi probably isn't as fast as the one on an iPhone. So that's a big difference. Okay, Alpha. Hello, Alpha. Watching you, me on puppy Linux laptop down under. Wanting Ubuntu phone soon. Hello, some dude. Okay, so do you need to get a PinePhone? Do you need to get a PinePhone, or the PinePhone has a fairly low-end camera? So if you want to take any pictures, stick to the Nexus 5. This is as a reasonable camera. The PinePhone only has 5 megapixels, so that's not even in the range of being acceptable for photos. This one is okay. I don't remember. I think it's how many megapixels is the camera on here? Is it 12 megapixels? It's sufficient. It's for the rear view, rear camera. The front, I believe, is lower. And the OnePlus One is even better for the camera, and the Librem 5 definitely is much higher grade. Librem 5 is 16 megapixels and 12, something like that. I'm thinking of trading mobile devices for stationary consoles throughout the house. Sick of batteries going bad. Now, that's one thing that's interesting about the PinePhone. The PinePhone has a removable battery, so you could, in theory, carry several batteries for your PinePhone, and then you stick it in as you need. So you can pre-charge, 2, 3 batteries if you want to on the PinePhone, because they're just standard Samsung J7 batteries, and they just slip in. And hello, W. Cole, first timer. How are you doing? So if that's important to you, then, and you don't power your phone in the car, then that might be of interest. And also, some people say, well, I don't trust those dip switches or kill switches on a PinePhone, but knowing that I can take off the battery will be good. Now let me just tell you something that's so funny to me. As you know, there was some protest in Hong Kong, and this is the same last year. So a lot of people protest in Hong Kong with anonymous masks. So they wear this anonymous masks, and protest, and the people, and they're all millennials, right? And people are taking photos of them in the protest with their masks, and they're all on their ducking iPhones and Android phones. So the government obviously knows who each one of those individuals are because they got their phone right there. I mean, it's so dumb. Seriously, dumbest thing I've ever seen is to go around to protest with an actual phone. Well, if you have a PinePhone, in theory, that's an advantage over a Nexus 5 because there's a kill switch. There's kill switches on a PinePhone. So in theory, you can. So what are the advantages of PinePhone? If you know how to make an SD card, if you bought one now, if you know how to make an SD card, well, the advantage is if it works, and we don't know, if I'm gonna guess there's still gonna be some issues with it for next couple of months, but most parts of it will probably work. Most parts of it will work with Ubuntu Touch. And if you use it now, then you can have the kill switch advantage, and likely the Bluetooth will work a little bit better than the one on the Nexus 5. So that's hello STP. So that's my prediction on the PinePhone. However, if you're an average user and you don't know how to, and you don't want to take the risk and play around with a PinePhone because you don't know how to burn SD cards, then forget about it and just wait for it to come out and buy it in March and get it sometime around April, and then by then it will come with a Ubuntu Touch on it likely, and it'll be ready for use. So now for those of you who decide not to do that and get the phone in advance, be aware that it'll be the same phone. So I do not think the phone will be any different. So that's what was said, by Lucas from Pine64. The phone itself will be the same as the one being shipped now. So the manufacturing is the same. The only difference will be in software. Okay? I'm not a Bluetooth user personally. AMG Bluetooth is only applicable for people who drive in cars, and being a New Yorker, you don't need to worry about that since you don't need to use Bluetooth in New York for driving. So this is just a driving thing, so it's big in LA. Okay, one thing that I just one of your comments actually. Oh yeah, okay. I know now what I'm talking about. I made an incorrect statement about the Nexus 5. Relating to Wi-Fi triangulation. I have now proven that PinePhone is $150. I've now proven that Wi-Fi triangulation does not exist on Ubuntu Touch, either in hardware or software. Okay, so I thought that the Wi-Fi triangulation, just like the iPhone, is built into the hardware, and it turns out that is not true, and I've verified it. The way you verify if Wi-Fi triangulation, I got the wrong piece of data before because I used it and I didn't realize that the scenario that I used it in caused me to think that there's Wi-Fi triangulation. There is none, and the reason is Wi-Fi triangulation. Wi-Fi triangulation works indoors. GPS does not. So what I did was, my phone is almost always switched to GPS off. my phone is always, GPS off. I have to keep approving your comments. Huge Byte is always being rejected by Google here, thinking you're saying some bad words. Anyway, so the Wi-Fi triangulation. So my GPS is off. So today I said, okay, let me practice using the navigation on here, because it does have navigation. So I said, can I use navigation on here? So I went to UNav, the app that has navigation, and turn on the Wi-Fi, because I have not used GPS in weeks, I think. It already forgot my location, so the GPS didn't have any memory of my location, because it doesn't keep it that long, and it actually had to get my location. And since I'm indoors, it couldn't get my location. So there it is, and it actually gave a location based on the IP address. So now that confirms that if you're using this, it's only using GPS for location. If you turn it on, there's no Wi-Fi triangulation, which means there's no something called Wi-Fi scanning, which is kind of revealing information about you. So Wi-Fi scanning does not work. So it's actually safer than I thought. This is safer than I thought. So I'm happy to hear that. Of course, it doesn't exist on the PinePhone either. Definitely, the PinePhone does not have hardware to do the Wi-Fi triangulation itself. It has to be the software, and now I've determined that's really part of the Google Android. So, which makes me feel better. It may mean that the Android OEM custom ROMs may be safer than I thought. So maybe. So not 100% certain, but that's good news. In any case, it's good to know that this, just like the PinePhone, will not track you. So what is the advantage of using something like an Ubuntu Touch? Well, it's not convenient in the sense that the devices are slower. So if you're wanting to do social media things like going to Periscope and such, Instagram and so on, it's not as convenient. You can still do it, but it's a browser, so it's slower, less convenient. It's not as snappy. You can't use Waze. You have to use something like UNav, and but it's actually, even if you use Google Maps on here, which I have Google Maps preloaded on this. Anyone who buys it from me, I preload Google Maps in case you're in an emergency. And Google Maps actually can't do Wi-Fi triangulation. So it's a lot safer than I thought. So anyway, so you do not need to wait for a PinePhone. This already works. And I'm expecting that the issue for Bluetooth, for those who are driving and want to use the phone for calling while driving, that may be coming up soon as a fix. Written with speedy keyboard. What does that mean, Mr. Tommy Islands? Oh, so anyway, ever use OpenStreetMaps? I don't need to. This comes with UNav. So UNav is works fine. You can. It's a native app here with swipe and all that, so it works fine. And yeah, so you can use UNav. You just have to practice using the app because it's a little bit different. You connect to your home Wi-Fi with a VPN router. I'm connected to a VPN router, obviously, even now. This is connected to the Wi-Fi using VPN router, yes, which is good because it also hides the IP address on my VPN my VPN routers, which I sell. Okay. So anyway, do you need to wait for the Raspberry Pi, the PinePhone? Sorry. No, no. That's it's more for me, types like me, because I want to be able to do things on it that I can't do on Ubuntu Touch. So let me just tell you about the status of Ubuntu Touch, because I actually played with this. I played with this extensively in the last few days, because this is my primary phone now. I don't actually bring my iPhone around. Here's my iPhone, and I actually leave it at home. I don't really bring this anywhere. Okay, I only use it on broadcast, and I use it to read Kindle. Other than that, I don't use it. There's no SIM card on it. Okay, hello, Locutos of Borg. Hello. So, let me give you my commentary on this and I already told you, millennials are gonna say it's too slow. If you're used to a fast iPhone, you're gonna say, "Hey, that's not fast enough." Yeah, but that being fast has a price. The price is my privacy, and for that, I don't care. So for me, it works fine. If I'm in a hurry and I need to go fast navigation, all that, yes, it's not as quick. Like if you're in a car and you got to find some fast navigation things, it's not going to be the answer. But it does the job for me, and let me just tell you what you can do with it at the moment. So on here, I have preloaded on my Ubuntu Touch. I preloaded Brax.me, obviously my app, which is a web app, so it runs fine. And it has, calculator, calendar, document viewer, want to read like PDF files. It has this app that is just killer app. It's called Cloud Music. And what Cloud Music is, it's a free streaming app that you can put, search for most popular songs, and it's all in here, artists and albums. And then you can actually say you want to play it like live using your cell data, or if you're at home, set it to play offline. So the option is, there's the icon in there, the red one right there. You can say play offline, and it will actually download the music, so you don't have to buy it. It's really, oh yes, I'm listening to all the jazz stuff on here. So I was able to play offline with, so let's say you're driving through Northern California, where there's no, like right on the ocean there, on the, Pacific Coast Highway, where there's no internet. I drove through there, and there's no internet like this summer. And I wouldn't have to worry about that. It was 4 hours of no internet. And I don't have to worry, because this will have downloaded the songs on this little Ubuntu Touch. Pretty cool. I have, I loaded Google Mail, and it has a web app on here, so you get the Google Mail from the web app. I have Google Apps. I have a music app on here, and what I did is I copied all of my music that I had on my BlackBerry. I had a BlackBerry with an SD card with all the music on it, and I copied it over to this. I'll tell you how I did that. It was actually pretty easy. So I copied all my songs to this. So this one is actually full of my music, and it was very easy to do. And then I have access to all my music, and it sounds good. So that was fine. Let's see, what else do I have here? I got the usual apps like Twitter, and if you want Facebook and Instagram, all of those web app versions are here. I got UNAV, I got YouTube, and that's basically all I needed. Plus there's a browser, so the browser gives me everything else that I don't need. If I need to search for something, I have that. It does have a camera and messaging. It does behave differently from an iPhone, so this is something that I learned about it from Ubuntu Touch, that sometimes I see the phone flashing. There's a LED light flashing on it, and I didn't know what it meant. So apparently that's notification. So if you see a flashing light on your Nexus 5, it means you have notifications. The notifications are only for for texting, phone calls, and so on. There's no app notifications. Okay. Hello, too late for love. So anyway, this is satisfactory. It does the job. Now let me just tell you, I said I want to tweak this more and want to do things that I can do because it's Linux. So one of the things I did was see if I can tweak it. And for those of you who already have Nexus 5, like Mario, go to Braxme, and I made a room called Ubuntu Touch. Join that room, and you'll see my notes on there. I keep adding notes on all little tricks on here that I didn't know about. One of the tricks that I did not know about was how easy it is to scan through the settings, because it was hard to read, and I didn't know you could do that. So look at this. You drop the curtain down. Without lifting your finger, you can just swipe left and right without lifting the finger. And as long as you haven't lifted your finger, you can actually see all the settings very quickly. Because sometimes you can't read the little writing on there. Okay, so today I learned how to do that. It's not, it doesn't operate like an iPhone and Android, so it does take some getting used to because the interface is a little bit different. One thing that some of the things that were kind of weird to me at the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing was, if you have to make a call, I press on the there's a phone icon in there. I press on that, and then there's so many clicks to find out who I'm calling, and I didn't realize I was a wrong move to make. That on this Ubuntu Touch, if you want to make a call, you actually should click on the contacts list first, not the phone icon. You click on contacts. If you want to message or call, you click on the contacts, and then you can scan the contacts and then click on it, and then you make the call from there. Otherwise, it's an extra step. I didn't know that. That's something that, different behaviors, and that may be irritating to some, but now that I've learned, I said, okay, I got it. Let's see, if you take a photo, remember, this is like a desktop computer. It's everything is kind of in a consistent place. If you take a photo, it goes into the pictures folder. If you have a document, you should save it into your documents folder. If you have downloads, it goes in the download folder. If you have music, you put it into the music folder, or directory. If you put in those directories, the apps will find it automatically. So it's kind of consistent if you know how you do it on Linux. So once I knew that, then then it was kind of simple. Now I said, how do you transfer your data, like contact lists and so on, from your other phone or from a computer onto the phone? So I put in instructions on the Braxme Ubuntu Touch room and showed you how you can load contacts in here. It's command line. So basically, how do you do it? It's very simple, actually. All you have to do is put a USB cable, plug it in here, and plug it into your computer, and immediately the drive for the user data section, which has documents, files, pictures, that's automatically visible to you. You don't have to do anything special. You just plug in the USB, and you can see the documents folder. Yes, hardwired, yes, but not for Ethernet. Jay, I don't know if the Ethernet works. I haven't tried it. Okay, so if you plug it in, immediately you see all the folders, so you can just copy it. Let's say you're in Windows, you can just copy your files directly into the phone, and you're done. Now, that's not good enough for me. I want full access to the phone. I want to be able to go and do things to it just like I would on any Linux box. And so today I did, or yesterday I set up for SSH. So I was able to SSH into the phone and pretty much do anything you can do in Linux, and go to every directory and so on, and go look at the settings and and everything that I want to see. Now by default it's read only, so you need to be careful what you do on it, because if you change some things on it, it will not get an update anymore. Right now by default it gets an automatic update. what cell phone carriers can be used with the Nexus 5 and the OnePlus One. In the US, all of them. In the US, all of them support the Nexus 5. And I found out that the phone works pretty much for many, many countries. I checked individually for those that ask me. I checked India, New Zealand, and Australia, and they all are supported by the standard US version. There's a European model that's a little bit different, and that's probably made for like the UK and such. So, so the international model is not what you need for many countries, including including Australia and New Zealand. The standard model works. So I say US version. It's not. They don't call it the US version. It's just the standard version. So it's called D821. So D821 works. Do you know if it's easy to make calls from the command line? I don't know if it's easy. Why do you need to make calls by command line? I don't know if it's easy, but you probably hello Mazarin Estudio from Argentina. Oh, it's Ariel. Oh, okay, that's Ariel from Argentina. Okay, you use a different name in here. What cell phone carriers? Okay, what did I miss? With the questions. Anyway, so this pretty much is controllable from SSH. There's a few tricks you got to do because it's not set to accept a password. But I wrote it all down and put it on there. You can even add firewalls if you want to get more exciting here, and such. And I was able to do many things on it that I want to do to tweak the phone. You can do it. I changed the font. You can change the font on it, like font size, because it was kind of tiny on the original version because it's a tiny phone. The OnePlus One's a little bit bigger, but this one is a little bit smaller screen. And I wanted the font to be a little bit larger, so I was able to make it a tad larger. If you make it too large, it becomes unusable. So I made it just a tad larger. I could do that. Let's see. Yes. I was like trying to see if at what point it starts to become unusable, even with a browser. So if you make it that it's too large, it's not going to be functional. So, but anyway, am I able to use this for when I'm on the road and not bring my iPhone? Absolutely, for my needs, because I don't want to be spied on. So my big negative, that doesn't really apply to me when I'm on the road, but the big negative is probably not having access to Kindle, because I like to read and there's no Kindle. There's a Kindle app on here. It's pretty awful, so I don't like using it. So I probably will not use it on this. If I needed to do that, I'll bring an iPhone. My iPhone does not have a SIM card. This does not have a SIM card. So, and I can leave the Wi-Fi off and leave it powered off. And if I ever need to, it wouldn't be a big deal to carry both of these in my pockets. It's so thin. But with this off, I'm not getting spied on. I can actually use this as the hotspot, and this will have fairly fast internet. So I have T-Mobile on this, and it has hotspot. So I was able to use my iPhone to access the internet through the Nexus 5 running Ubuntu Touch. No problem there. I was able to use that. So anyway, so functional. And if I were traveling, let's say, I use the other one for everyday use, and then I use the iPhone if I needed to, like if I'm going to be gone for a long time. Can't you use the Kindle Cloud Reader? It's awful. Kindle Cloud Reader is very, very buggy on the phone interface. Kindle Cloud Reader works fine on the computer, but it's really not that usable on mobile. what do you think about the next iPhone 12? So you can't read downloaded PDF books on it. Yeah, you can, just not. Yeah, you can read. There's other readers that you can use. I'm talking about Kindle books. There are other readers. So if you want to use some other readers, that'll work fine, I'm sure. I'm talking specifically Kindle format. Which iPhone or custom ROM would you suggest for whistleblower, citizens, charter, criminal, investigator, prosecutor? Google are playing some evil games to force me off the platform. I would say that if I were you, at worst case scenario, use an Ubuntu Touch like this for now. That's all you have. But if you want to play it safer, then I would use the PinePhone because of the kill switches. This does not have a kill switch. So for those more serious about being spied on, you may want to have the kill switch option. So, but that's not, again, if you get a PinePhone today, it doesn't have any software. So you may have to, if you buy a PinePhone in December, it may be that you don't use it completely until March. So if you're able to do that, and you can play with it for a month or so, but be patient. It's for sure there's going to be some OS, because I already see what the progress is. There's going to be some OS that's done already before March, but it may be January or sometime in February before they're actually ready for normal people to use. So if that's not a problem, it's the same phone. You can buy the Braveheart edition. It does not actually have any difference with the phone that they're going to ship in March, except for the software. So if that's the only limitation, it's no big deal to burn an SD card. If you have Windows or a Mac or Linux, you can easily do that. Download the file and you burn it. It's pretty simple. So if you know where to go, it's not that hard to do. It's not as difficult as setting up Ubuntu Touch on these phones. This is kind of, there's a lot of steps to putting Ubuntu Touch on a Android phone, which is why I charge money for doing it, because it's time consuming. But that's not going to be true with an SD card. SD card, burn the disk and distribute it. I mean, not going to take that long. Okay? It's just basically, the few minutes that the half an hour that your computer is going to be taking to do it. There's actually no physical work to do. Have you looked at the Pinebook laptops? Not interested in Pinebook laptops myself, because I use Raspberry Pis anyway. You picked up your phone and suspended the broadcast. I what? I picked up my phone and suspended the broadcast. What does that mean? Librem 5 Evergreen release starts April 1st, 2020. Kill switches. Yeah, April. Yeah, so by April 1st, I would have used the PinePhone for several months already. So I'm getting the PinePhone in a few weeks, and I can do the same exact things I can do in the Librem 5, though not necessarily as fast. So of course I have an order for Librem 5, but in my line of work I have to get all these devices. But I think that for experimentation purposes, I'm going to be satisfied with using the PinePhone. So, if somebody has a Librem 5, I'm sure I can. If somebody comes up with some new hardware, I'm sure I can buy that too. So again, what is the difference? What is the difference between a Librem 5 and a PinePhone versus using Android phones? So I'll tell you the difference, because then you'll actually see. And I'm going to make a video explaining this in detail, because it's very, very complicated. The problem is that the Android phones are not made for Linux. Someone could say, but Android's Linux. Okay, this is not, an Android is not an authentic GNU Linux computer. So So not going to waste my time with, Android fans. If you're a fanboy of Android and you're going to come here and tell me that Android works exactly like Linux, you got to be kidding me. Okay, so it's extremely hard to get into Android. I mean, it's locked up from the bootloader and everything, recoveries and there's no actual direct way to do it. Can you imagine on a Raspberry Pi or a PinePhone? All you have to do is put the SD card in. That's it. SD card. Stick the SD card in there, and you boot it, and you're done. Okay, so you can do it on a computer, download the image, load it. There's no special thing you have to do. On Android, it's like all locked up and all this with all these special things in there, and maybe encryption and all the stuff in there, and just made for you not to be able to touch it. So as you might say that Android is a baby Linux. It's basically made so you can't really do anything to it. It's locked down tight. Made sure that you don't mess with it. It's it's the secret sauce to Android and iOS. They give you a phone that you don't think about, and you don't access to everything, and then you're all set. Can't wait for the day I buy a Linux phone. Why do you need to wait for the day, Token Tech? Go to PinePhone, Pine64, and get one now. They have 3,000 of them. Yeah, don't need to look at E Foundation, no. Why do I need to look at E? It's the same, it's no different than Lineage OS. So the main difference, as Angel has said, between the true Linux phones and Android is that the support for the device, the drivers, are mainlined to Linux. What that means, what does mainlining mean? It's a new term for you. Some of you don't, know Linux. So mainlining is they actually make the drivers part of the Linux kernel. I think drivers are at the kernel level. So they make the drivers part of the kernel so that all the distros, all the different versions of Linux, which are called distros, all the distros will have the same driver. So, for example, if you put a Wi-Fi adapter on a Raspberry Pi, and it's one of those models that are supported by Linux, it automatically works. You don't have to do anything. And that's the simplicity of this. And the fortunate part is that the devices used on the Librem 5, well, on the Pine64, they already have the Linux drivers for it because it's the same. I checked it, and the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth is exactly the same one they use on the Pine64. So it's already been out there for years. So Linux already had access to the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth drivers for years on the Pine64. And now in the Librem 5, the Purism itself, the makers of the Librem 5, sent the drivers to mainline Linux. So it's called sending it downstream, so up to where the source is. So now future releases of Linux will automatically have drivers for the Librem 5. You don't have to think about it. Okay? So it means that no one has to mess with Android drivers and so on. See, what happened on Android, and this is one of the difficulties. I'm going to make a video to explain this to you and why it's so difficult to make these phones work for Linux, because they're not made for Linux, because Android is locked down. So the drivers are proprietary and they're locked down on Android. And the way this works on Android is that the drivers are made to work with a specific Android behavior, and they just and if a manufacturer wants to make a unique behavior, then they fork Android and make a different version of Android just for the phone. So that's how they adjust to their own device drivers. And this, can you imagine if you're, let's say, I'll give you an example. So Samsung the foldable phone. So they made a foldable phone, right? Okay, so obviously the screen size and the behavior of foldable phone will be different. And a foldable phone from Samsung has, there's the display on the other side. There's actually two displays, one in front, one in the back. So those are going to need special drivers because you're going to now need a driver for the front display and for the rear display, and that's not supported by the normal Android. So then they're going to make a fork of an Android that does this, and they have to modify the standard Android version to do that. So whatever Google makes for Android 9 or Android 10, then they have to go modify that and make a fork of the code and add the specific version for foldable phone with two screens. Well, obviously, no one's going to know how to do that, and since it's unique to Samsung, it will never be able to pass to Linux because no one's going to know how to do that because it's proprietary code. So there you go. So that's one of the reasons, and that's true of all these special devices. Over time, there's never been common drivers, and they can make their own drivers and variations of Linux. And one of the problems with the somebody making custom versions of Android, not Linux. One of the problems with having custom versions of Android is that it never gets updated. So if you have a Android 4.4 lollipop from way back when, it never gets updated. Why? Because they made custom changes to Android, and that's why you don't get security updates and all that. So it's the Motorola Razr flip phone is it's an example again of a unique driver. So the Motorola flip phone, so they again two screens, so different driver, one for the front, one for the back, unique size. Well, although it's just a longer phone, but there's the front and back screen. That means new drivers. That's the kind of device that will never make it to Linux because obviously that's not going to be compatible. Because no one's going to have the drivers. The drivers are going to only exist with Motorola. So that's the world that we have with Android. And this is why some people have tried to convert some old Android phones to run, some Android custom ROM. But chances are the devices like the Motorola Razr or the foldable Samsung are not going to be supported by Lineage OS and all this because they're not going to have the drivers. So even the standard people who make Android distributions are going to have a problem with those devices. So there's the problem right there. So anyway, on Linux you don't have any of these issues. And I'm going to tell you, it's just so much fun when I was able to actually go into my phone. And it took me a while to go figure out, because it's locked down too. They locked down the Ubuntu Touch, and you have to figure out to unlock it to be able to access it like a normal Linux computer. So now I figured that out, and I can pretty much get around here. I have SSH access, and I can go look at all how it's configured and go into specific things and put firewalls in and check out the network and load VPNs and all that. And if there's a bug, I can go inside and outside of the interface and go directly into whatever the file is, where all the stuff is that you can use to control this. And I'm able to Mr. H. So I like that. I like that I was able to do SSH to it and do all that stuff. Now, what can I not do on an Ubuntu Touch? And this is where I wish I can try out the other OSs that are available on the Linux world, which is Plasma Mobile and Postmarket OS. So we're going to talk about that next. So what I cannot do on this is I cannot run desktop apps. So let's say you want to run a photo editor called GIMP. Can you run GIMP on this? No. Can you run FLDigi for those who are ham radio operators? Can you run FLDigi on this? No. Can you run Firefox on this? With great difficulty, very slow. a lot of apps do not run on the Ubuntu Touch platform that are run on the desktop. And the reason is because this device uses a desktop interface called Unity. Unity was made for Ubuntu 16.04, and we're now in Ubuntu 18.04 for the long-term release, and Ubuntu 19 for 2019. And the problem with using Ubuntu 16.04 using Unity is that it uses a different graphical driver or graphical interface that was only in existence for 16.04 Ubuntu. So Canonical, the makers of Ubuntu, made their own, at the time they thought, unique graphical driver instead of the standard one called X Windows. So instead of using X Windows for their windowing, they said, we're going to make our own windowing thing that works for mobile and desktop, and we're going to call it Mir. Or Mir, sorry, Mir, not Mir. Mir is something else. So it's called Mir. So they made Mir, and then they dumped Mir. So Canonical Ubuntu no longer uses Mir. It now uses GNOME. So now we're stuck because even Ubuntu stopped using the thing that they developed called Mir, and unfortunately, the Ubuntu Touch still uses Mir, so they have to convert this, which means apps that use Xorg and all that is not going to work on this, or even GNOME. So that's problem number one. So the windowing graphics is different. Number two problem is Ubuntu Touch is based on a older version of the Linux kernel, I believe 3.3 of the Linux kernel. And a lot of apps already compiled to work on a newer Linux kernel, and because the Linux kernel on Ubuntu Touch is older, it doesn't work. So this is the main problem with this, is the desktop apps don't work. They are switching to Unity 8, Donnie, but they're not. They're also converting to moving out of Mir, and going into Wayland, which is the same one that's being used in modern devices and on the Librem 5. So they're going Wayland. So yes, Ubuntu dropped Unity and they went back, and the problem is, of course, Ubuntu Touch is stuck there with an old kernel, Linux kernel at 3.3, and so compiled code that works for newer kernels don't work because they don't have that. So that's why they locked down. You can't really install apps directly, desktop apps directly on Ubuntu Touch, and there's some limitations. You can load some desktop apps on here, but you have to use a special jailed container called Libertine. Then you got to understand how Libertine works, and it's basically a jailed environment called Chroot. So you can do it in some limited instances, but there's compatibility-wise, like 90% of all the apps that I would install are not available. So kind of pointless. So done with that. So you can use this as your standard device, but if you want to use desktop apps, this is not a desktop app solution. So what about if you use a different OS instead of Ubuntu Touch? Well, the next one that's coming out that's close is called Post-Market OS, and Post-Market OS uses a desktop environment called Plasma Mobile, which also works on the Librem 5, and that is actually already so the windowing and all that, the mobile framework called Plasma Mobile, made by KDE, which is based on Plasma that they use on KDE. So Plasma Mobile is available on the PinePhone, not on these devices. They're made for the PinePhone. So Plasma Mobile already actually has some development code for the PinePhone. So I expect Plasma Mobile sometime in March to be done with that. I think the main problem they have with I think most things are done for Plasma Mobile using Postmarket OS. They just have to do some final testing on texting and calls, and let me see, maybe some problem with accelerometers and things. It's mostly ready. So but Plasma Mobile, still has some interface issues since it's never been used live. So this will be the first device that it will be used on. So my guess is that Plasma Mobile will not be perfect as a mobile interface on day one. However, the Linux interface, it uses Postmarket OS, which is standard Linux, in which case you should be able to do standard Linux things, including loading typical desktop apps. That should work on Postmarket OS. So actually all I have to do, in theory, is switch out, SD card. So if I want to play with, making apps and things, just switch out the SD card on the PinePhone, and I should be able to do it. So if some of you say, well, I want to experiment, could you buy a PinePhone now and experiment? The answer is yes, actually you can. And the reason is this. Yes, when you get the PinePhone, it has no OS on it. But all you have to do is burn an SD card, and if you can't use it in December, certainly somebody will have an SD card available, by the time the final releases, and you already have the hardware. The hardware isn't going to change. They're using the same hardware. So if you're not worried about that and you're willing to hold on to the phone a couple of months or 3 months early, then you can get the phone now from PinePhone. The price isn't going to change. Nothing's really going to change except the final ones will have an SD card. So if you're interested in experimenting, worst case is you need to get a final version of the SD card at some point. Other than that, it'll be the same device. So it's actually not going to be a problem. Why are streaming so late? What does that mean, streaming so late? What does that mean, streaming so late? I don't get it. I don't get it, Ross. Are you like not on daylight savings time? Okay. So when you're using Plasma Mobile, which is standard Postmarket OS, which comes from Alpine Linux, you do not need something called Libertine, Donnie. You don't need any of that. You can just do whatever I don't know what the repo or uploading methodology is for Alpine Linux, but whatever the equivalent is to apt-get, you'll be able to do very simply from the command line, and it should work because so it should work. There's nothing special you'd have to do, and that's why it's kind of neat that you can do that on a Linux phone like the PinePhone. So for those of you who don't need to worry about that, I think that the phones like the Nexus 5 will be equivalent to the PinePhone minus the kill switches. So for normal people who want to just get it going now, not wait till April or whatever, you can just get these and this will run just fine. And hopefully the main bug for me is the Bluetooth, and that might get solved shortly, like in a few weeks, because they already have it. It's just you have to wait for the next upgrade, and typically they do it in like a few week cycles. So my last update on this phone came on 11.5, so they updated this so 11.5, so a couple weeks ago. So I imagine that they may have an update coming out in the next few weeks. So okay, come on. 12:38 a.m. is here. What am I doing differently, Russ? What are you up to, Russ? I mean, I broadcast from 8 to 10 Pacific for the last 4.5 years. What is different? Okay, so maybe you forgot what time you watch. Okay, so anyway, do I recommend that you get a PinePhone if you're if you have money? Who cares? You can get one now. It'll work in March as well as will work in December. The issue though is that the issue will be more of that there's actually nothing that if you get a phone now, it may be that if you don't know how to use, if you make these, then they're not gonna work day one. Start earlier. Never started earlier, Russ. I don't know what you're talking about. I have never started earlier than 8 p.m. Pacific. So that's been forever. Okay, so anyway. So Ubuntu Touch is currently probably close to completely running since there's no driver issues they have to worry about except for the display driver because it's using mirror. So but I see that's already running, so I'm going to assume that that's not going to be an issue. Remember, this Nexus 5 is probably faster than a PinePhone. So from a speed point of view, the older phone is actually faster. A PinePhone is, again, mostly like a Raspberry Pi. So, anyway, that's just to give you an idea. But again, I'm looking forward to trying out Plasma Mobile on the PinePhone so that I can do Linux things. And only because I'm more of a Linux geek than the average person, and I want to do Linux kind of things that you can't do normally. So if you're a Linux geek, then you're going to want to use PinePhone. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Could I use small, old little programs from Ubuntu 16.04 distribution? If they work in Ubuntu 16.04, they might work, yeah. Yeah, if they worked in Ubuntu 16.04 and they were distributed by Ubuntu in 16.04, there's a possibility that, well, they have to be compatible or it wouldn't work on 16.04. However, they may not be designed for mobile. So that's, just because they're compatible doesn't mean you can use it on mobile because the screen is smaller. So that's not necessarily the case. Okay, but I'm glad, I can SSH into this and, I presume I can actually make this into a Tor router, for example, and do things that I would normally do on a Raspberry Pi. I can probably put it on this phone. And similarly, I could probably make a PinePhone into a Tor router. Kind of an expensive version, but I could do that. It's going to be possible. So that's kind of the cool things that you can do. This is kind of exciting times in a way, but I'm going to tell you to set expectations that most millennials will look at this and laugh at us, okay? So if you're not a millennial, the millennials will laugh and say, ha, 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 look at those backward devices. They're so slow. So if you're on Periscope right now, you're already laughing at me because you're using your fancy iPhones and Androids and you're looking at this. It's like, we need fast phones for Periscope, so we're not going to be able to do anything with this. This actually works fine on YouTube. I don't have any problem watching videos on YouTube on this. No problem whatsoever. So it's if you want speed, that's not here yet. If this works out, let's say in 2020, this works out, and people actually buy Linux phones in 2020, By 2021, they don't have to do much. All they have to do is update the CPUs and use faster devices. And by 2021, we can get really competitive with these. And and it's possible. No, these are geek phones. I'm talking about millennial non-geeks. Geeks. This is a geek phone right now. Not a boomer phone, a geek phone. Boomers are not. Grandma's not gonna want this. Can you imagine grandma saying, "I want to use Ubuntu Touch"? No fucking way. They want something really dumb that you can't screw up, and they're gonna want an iOS phone. So no, so that's not gonna happen. So the solution for grandma will still be Android and iOS, but for the geeks in us, and then the privacy people, this is exciting. So I'm imagining that by in a couple of years, if you guys support this, in a couple of years we're gonna have some options. The third option, by the way, that hasn't been mentioned, that's going to be available to many, is called Loon OS. Loon OS. Okay? Loon OS, Lune OS, is actually based on Palm OS. So if you have your Palm PDAs from way back then, that is the basis of that. So Loon OS is a new version that is based on the code of Palm OS, and they were working on something called Web OS. Good night, Russ. Web OS it's now been turned into this thing called Loon OS, and it's not Linux. It's not. I don't actually know what the base, if it's completely custom OS or but it's based on Palm. And is it like what's it based on? Is it what is it close to? Is it a BSD or I actually don't have no idea. I'm gonna have to research that. So but Loon OS is not Linux, and that's also going to be available on the PinePhone. Back in the day, you thought Palm OS was going to be the de facto future of tech. Yep. And so was the BlackBerry, but then it died. So grandma or grandpa, they built the country high tech back in the day too. Yeah. So how many apps, other software have you written already for these new phones? I haven't written anything for the phones, but my current app. Do I like Chrome OS? Zuck, no. Dark vanilla, Zuck. Don't ever mention that to me. Chrome OS, Zuck. That's like, that's not my idea of an OS. Lockdown, tracking built in by Google. Everything you do is Google. Forcing you to use Google everything, Google Cloud. You're locked in to a login on Google. If you don't log into Google, the device is worthless. Can't do anything to it. Some people are saying, well, I can load Linux on Chrome OS. No, forget it. Forget it. It's useless. So I know Loon OS is based on Web OS, but what is Web OS based on? What is Palm OS based on? Where did it come from? So it's not a fork. Did they make their own kernel, and how do they do that? So we don't actually know. We actually don't know, or I don't know at the moment. I got to look back because that's kind of going back in time a little bit. So I don't know exactly where Palm OS fits into the modern architecture of OSs, if it was based on something else. So can you bridge your calls from your Linux phone over a VPN? No. You're going to have to use voice over IP, and at the moment I don't think that's necessarily supported. The Librem 5, I think, is working on something that will support that in the future using something called Matrix. So both ends have to be on Matrix. So you have to use voice over IP apps. That doesn't mean anything, Mad Cow. Being written in C++ doesn't mean anything. That's just the language. But what is the is the kernel based on anything, or is it a complete rewrite? Okay, so most of the time Google will shut it down after a while. He's got to be okay. So the C doesn't scare me. I'm actually I'm a C programmer, so I was looking at some code for using Qt or Qt on Linux to program some of the interfaces for KDE or Plasma Mobile, and it's written in C, and it's like, oh, okay. I looked at it. It's like no big deal, It's I can handle that. So, but Python would be a lot faster to do. So, yeah, I'm a C programmer, so nothing like that scares me. The original Linux kernel was written in C. No, I think the original one was written in assembly language, and then they rewrote it in C. So I learned C, from the original Kernighan and Ritchie book way back in the day, and that was the time they were like writing. They began writing Linux. Kernighan and Ritchie were the people who started writing the Linux kernel together with Linus. I remember the Tandy Corporation from Radio Shack. Matrix is some sort of open source platform that allows some sort of peer-to-peer communications that you can kind of hook up your app to, and so you can, if you do that, then there's an infrastructure for peer-to-peer communications without needing a server. So that's what Matrix is intended to do. So can't say I've really studied Matrix because I have my own platform. I have Brax.me. So Brax.me is my platform, and that actually works fine on Ubuntu Touch. Okay, the only thing that's a problem on Ubuntu Touch is I don't have swipe. So Ubuntu Touch takes over the swipe because swipe is being used by the OS, so I can't use swipe in the app. So which kind of bugs me, but not. What is the Matrix? Oh, you mean the Matrix, not Matrix. Yeah, you mean the red pill or the blue pill Matrix. So, but there's no, Matrix is not a chat app. It's an infrastructure which you can use for chat. No, it's not like Slack. It's actually an infrastructure. You can build apps over it. It's just the infrastructure. So Matrix itself is not the app. Hello, Ali. So Matrix itself is not the app. So anyway, Matrix is it's just the backend platform for it. You can write your own apps against it. I may look into it in the future, but it's not something that I'm focused on at the moment. So coming around the pike here, somewhere around maybe April. Maybe around April, we'll be able to swipe. Like on an iPhone, you can swipe Brax.me. It's a faster way to use Brax.me is swipe. Hello, Ali. How you doing, my friend? So swipe is very, is what, if I use an iPhone and you download the app from the App Store, same with Android. If you use Android and use Brax.me, it works with swipe. It doesn't work with swipe on the browser, but it works with swipe on the phone, on the app. So that's how I use, that's how I personally use Brax.me when I'm on an iPhone. I swipe. On a Ubuntu Touch, there's no swipe, so you have to press the buttons. you can connect Matrix to Slack with a bridge. Yeah, so you can. Why are you talking about Slack anyway? So anyway, yeah, so Matrix is the back end. So in theory, you can write any kind of communications platform to pass data through Matrix. And I personally haven't really researched it much because I don't know if it's advantageous for what I do. It doesn't matter to me because my app is already pseudo anonymous, so it's not as relevant to do that since we don't even know who you are anyway when you're using BraxMe. Can I give you advice about working in the IT field? No. What advice can I give you? If you want to do it, you got to learn a lot of stuff. Dark Vanilla. So obviously you're a young man. I'm gonna tell you to just keep you excited here that the guy who's the lead guy in charge of Ubuntu Touch, the group called UB Ports, this guy, the main guy, his name is Marius. He lives in Norway. I think he started this writing code for Ubuntu Touch, meaning taking over the project from Canonical. I think he started this at the age of 17. I don't know, 17, maybe 18. I don't know if he's even 21. So he's and he's already in charge of Halium and UB Ports and the lead developer for them, and some other the young people that I saw on UB Ports. So young people can do it. It's so they just started early and said, I'm going to learn everything I can learn, and that's it. So can we use BraxMe to organize the next revolution? Is it safe for that? Yes, Tootin' Man, you can do that. BraxMe, my app, is although it's already encrypted, it's really different than Signal and Telegram and so on because the app is focused on pseudo anonymity. If you run Telegram and Signal and WhatsApp, stupid WhatsApp, but if you run those on your device, the first thing they ask you is your phone number. Well, how the fuck do you become pseudo-anonymous if you're giving them your phone number? Anyone can check who owned the phone number and find out who you are. What's the point of that? BraxMe doesn't have anything like that. It doesn't require you to do anything. You reveal only as much information as you care to reveal. And if you do so, it's encrypted anyway. But because of the fact that there's actually no requirement to put in even an email address or a phone number, then you can remain pseudo-anonymous forever. You don't even have to use any particular name. And that is what's unique about Brax.me. So forget about the encryption. It does have end-to-end encryption and all that for chat. But it doesn't even matter because we don't know who you are. There's no IP addresses. There's nothing. So all we know is that you are who you claim you are by name, and that's it. So if you use a VPN or if you use was going to build a dark web way to get into it, so then you don't have to worry about the promise that there's no IP address. There isn't. But if you don't believe it, you can use a VPN or whatever else, and there's absolutely no collection of any data. I showed logs live here on my live stream showing you the contents of Brax.me and how there is no logging of IP addresses whatsoever. So it's completely pseudo-anonymous. So you can be whoever you claim to be. For example, there's various people on there like Infowars, MAGA, and so on. Even Trump, I believe, is on there. And obviously, they're not those people. But you can be anyone you want. No one's going to stop you. So they're on the platform, including some legit people who actually are who they are in social media. But some people can really have any kind of identity on there, and that's one of the advantages. Pseudo anonymity is extremely important to be able to do social media, but not be able to be censored in any way. Because who are they censoring? if we don't track IP addresses, who are actually being censored if you block somebody by name? They'll just come back with a different name. So anyway, that's Brax.me. You don't need to participate in. They're weird people, and Brax just like anything else. My views on talks. What is talks? If the alphabets come, will you give them? There is nothing to give, Tootin' Man, because it's pseudo-anonymous. There's no data to give. Yes, by law I have to give. That's why I don't collect, Tootin' Man. The reason that I don't collect data is so that I have nothing to give. So if it's end-to-end encrypted chat, I don't have a way of decrypting that. So there you go. If you're in one of the open areas, you're pseudo-anonymous. I don't know who you are anyway. So you say, well, give me information on IP addresses and all that, and I'll say, sure, we don't have anything. So if you go into the platform and want to be pseudo-anonymous, you will be. Talks is a peer-to-peer instant messaging and video calling protocol that offers end-to-end encryption. Okay. Don't know why you need that. So anyway, there's again the difference with Brax.me is anyone can talk in Brax.me. You don't need to have, for example, let's say you're going to use Matrix on Librem 5. So you're going to use their voice over IP app to talk over Matrix. The other party has to know how to talk to you because it's direct communications. How do you talk to people in general, like social media? Well, that's what Brax.me does. Santiago, how are you doing, Santiago? So that's what Brax.me does. Brax.me allows you to talk as a group and talk there, and you don't have to be identified. So your identity is whatever you've established your identity to be. So that's completely different than saying I'm going to use, things like this talks thing that you're talking about, or even Signal, because who are you talking to? In order to talk on Signal, WhatsApp, and all that, well, on Signal, you have to know who you're talking to. There are open groups on Telegram and WhatsApp, but so the open groups are the same as the open groups on Brax.me. The only difference is on Brax.me, you're pseudo-anonymous. We did not ask for your phone number. There is no phone number. So the first thing you do when you start Telegram is, what's your phone number? It's like, suck that. And then it imports your contact list. BS. I don't want you to import my contact list. So, is that baby powder on the shelf back there? Come on, Donnie. That is not a real shelf. Tazak. That doesn't exist. There's just a green screen behind me. The screen behind me is zucking green, Donnie. There's nothing. It's a wall. So if you're actually thinking there's actual shelves there with actual content, then no, there's nothing. So the shelving is actually on my right. So there's shelves in here on the right. But there's no shelves behind me. So anyway, if you're understanding, what all these mean for us in the future with all these devices, if you support them, it could mean that we will have better devices, in a couple of years, and we're not spending that much money unless you're getting a Librem 5. My problem with the Librem 5, can I tell you? My problem with the Librem 5, and I spent $720 in my Librem 5 that I'm not going to get till April or May or June or whatever it shipped to me. My problem with Brax sounds like Minds. Brax.me has been around for several years, and no one has ever been compromised on Brax.me. Okay, so anyway, it doesn't matter if it's decentralized and whatever, because decentralization is actually a problem, because that means there are multiple copies of your data everywhere. Brax.me has only one copy, and if you delete, let's say you have a document in Brax.me and you delete it, then it's gone because there's no backup of it. So you delete a document, and then beyond the backup period, that's it. You'll never see it again. So if you do peer-to-peer, and especially blockchain-based things, then it's actually kept forever and ever. So I don't necessarily want that. Even if it's encrypted, I don't want any trace on it, because you can trace things and have a metadata associated with it. I hope that Librem work out. Okay, so let's talk about the Librem 5. So the thing about the problem I have with the Librem 5, and yes, I spent the money, and chalk it up to development expense here on my channel. So I have to do it anyway, just to test things out. So $720 for that. And the problem with the Librem 5 is that the CPU, it doesn't seem like it's much faster than the Pine 64. Because guess what? The Pine 64 uses the same CPU. It's an 853 Cortex. That's the same one as being used on the Librem 5, with the exception that there's a secondary processor. I think it's just single core. So there's like a fifth core, and then there's a little bit faster speed, because it's I believe it's one is 1.2 gigahertz and the other one is 1.5 gigahertz. Well, that doesn't sound like terribly fast. It sounds like a device that's only 30% faster. Let's just say even if it's 50% faster than a Pine 64, that means it's not much faster than a Nexus 5. So I'm paying $720 for Nexus 5 speed. Well, that doesn't sound too exciting, to be honest with you. That is not very exciting. So that worries me about the Librem 5, because if I'm going to tell you what my real concern is about Ubuntu Touch on these old phones, is they are nowhere near the speed of an iPhone. This is an iPhone 10, and this is like 5-6 generations behind an iPhone 10. This is like a speed of an iPhone 5S. A 5S. Silverlight. Hello, Mr. Silverlight. So, this is like an iPhone 5S. Not even an iPhone 6. So if you're going to say that, then what is a Librem 5? An iPhone 6? This is an iPhone 10. So I'm not too excited with the we have to see it, but it's not very exciting to see what the speed is on the Librem 5. That is my main concern for such a high price. They should have, looked for something faster. So I have no doubt that in a couple of years, when it's established and there's a market for this, that they may have a big jump in CPU at that point. But at the moment, it's an issue. Doesn't sound fast, especially with unrefined software and drivers. No, it does not. It doesn't matter, Donnie. I mean, don't you think this is optimized by Android people, Google? This is Google optimized and can only work so fast because it's an old phone. So if the CPU is not, anywhere near, if they get just near a speed of an iPhone 10, this is an iPhone 10. If you get anywhere near the speed of an iPhone 10, this is really functional because iPhone is really fast. So, even if you're doing web apps, it's so fast you don't even notice that it's a web app because it's moving very, very fast on it. So you swipe it and it's almost an immediate thing, and that doesn't happen on the older phones like this Nexus 5. But I understand it for the first product. But what I'm hoping is that if this is successful, maybe in a couple of years, then they'll be competitive with CPU. So you'll still be happy when you get the 5. So I've been hampered with power consumption for the last couple of years. The Librem, they've been hampered with power consumption for the last couple of years. How can they be hampered with power consumption the last couple of years? They've only had a model they only had like a working model for the last couple of months. So they don't even have a working model. So now that they have a working model, then they can focus on some of the heat dissipation and all those issues on a Librem 5. That's one of the problems they have, is the CPU is shutting down and slowing because it's too hot. So maybe you need to fly to the factory that's making Librem 5 and pick up 2. You mean you want me to go to China? What? So so I can stick egg rolls up my zass? So any more just so zucking Wong? The battery runs out on idle within 6 hours. You already know that? So, the fortunate part about the Pine 64 that really makes that some of it a non-issue on the Pine 64 is they already had the technology with the Pine 64 board. So there aren't really too many mysteries for them aside from putting a display and a baseband on there. By the way, something that I want to tell you about the Pine 64 that you ought to know about. So as far as a privacy phone, a Nexus is not equivalent to the privacy features of a Librem 5 and a PinePhone. And you know about the kill switches, right? So kill switches exist only on a PinePhone and a Librem 5 in all the world. There are no other devices with a kill switch other than the PinePhone and the Librem 5. But this is the exciting thing that I want you to know. And I heard this directly from the Pine 64 head himself. So I talked to the head of Pine 64. His name is TL, I said. And TL told me that the baseband and Wi-Fi, which I believe the Wi-Fi is already designed like this on the Pine 64, the baseband and the Wi-Fi use the USB bus. Baseband and Wi-Fi use on the Pine 64. The Wi-Fi uses the USB bus. On the PinePhone, the baseband will also use the USB bus. Now, why is that? Why is that important? The reason that that's important is because on a standard Android, the baseband shares the same memory bus as the main board. They share the same memory. So they have the same memory bus and the same I/O bus as the main CPU. Okay, so as you know, the baseband has its own CPU and it runs, as its own computer. It's a SoC, system on a chip. And if it shares some wiring connection with memory, it in theory could read the memory on the main board. Okay, that is not possible on a PinePhone. Not just the Librem 5. It is not possible on a PinePhone as well because TL said that the PinePhone uses the USB bus. So surprisingly, the PinePhone at its price point is actually close to the security features with the switches as the Librem 5 for a lot cheaper, like a third of the price. So it's yes, Mr. H, you should get you should get a pop-up blocker for. You mean like this? There. Does that make you feel better? Okay, so the PinePhone is actually pretty well equipped. The CPU is not much different than the Librem 5. So for the price, the PinePhone is reasonable, and it's a lot more stable just because it's already based on the Pine 64 boards. It uses the same chips as the Pine 64 board. So in a way, that kind of like worries me about the pricing difference between the Librem 5 and the Pine 64, because what am I getting differently from the Librem 5? I understand that they're putting work on the software side, but if it's not going to be snappy like an iPhone, then it might not be satisfactory. Does swipe affect our privacy on Brax? No. What does swipe have to do with affecting privacy? I don't understand that. I don't collect like swipes. I don't know if you swiped or clicked the button. That's not something that is recorded. We don't do things like that. On Brax.me, I try to collect as little information as possible, only what's relevant. Otherwise, I don't collect the data. The reason I do that is I don't want somebody to come to me and subpoena me for information, because I don't want to have to respond to somebody subpoenaing me for information. Because say, go at it. Go look at it yourself. I'm a Pine 64 fanboy. Already got that PineBook Pro. Yeah, so PineBook Pro versus... let me just ask you, Josmo. You probably get a better deal instead of getting a PineBook Pro. You probably get a better deal getting an old Lenovo T430. You can probably get those for $100, and they'll be a lot more powerful than a PineBook. So, and it's compatible with Linux. So I'm not sure why you want a PineBook. So, yeah, I don't know what's the point. Does the OS of our keyboard invade your privacy? Does the OS of our keyboard invade your privacy on Brax? Does the OS of our keyboard... I don't really care what the OS is. It's a web app. So, although there's a app interface, most of the stuff goes on a browser, which has limited ability to collect data. So Brax doesn't have the ability to, spot internal things about your phone. It doesn't even know. It doesn't have access to things like what is your user ID on your phone. It doesn't have access to any of that. PinePhone 10 times over that. PinePhone 10 times over that Librem brick. No, the Librem is faster. I just can't say that I can justify the price difference. So is it 3 times faster? No. So, but it's 3 times more costly. So that's a difference. So not sure. T430 doesn't have a metal body or privacy switches like the PineBook. T430 can shut down IMEI and BIOS, and it has a carbon body, I think. So, and it's fucking cheap, and it's probably faster, and it comes with a big hard drive. Yeah, it's just heavy, But I mean, hello, Lenny PR. Remind me, Lenny PR, to reboot the South server after I do the broadcast. I keep forgetting that. I gotta do it immediately after the broadcast. I see Lenny PR. Just show your face and I'll know to reboot the South server. I did get an old Dell Latitude with Arch Linux, but I appreciate the fun playing with an ARM-based laptop that cost me delivered $262. Yeah, but you can get a T430 for $100. So yeah, now I use a lot of Raspberry Pis, as you know. I mean, I have a ton of Raspberry Pis here. I must have like, I don't know, 2 dozen Raspberry Pis, in my vicinity here. I have a lot of Raspberry Pis, and I have a stock of them. And I have them in 3B plus 4s. I got a lot of them. You like the new design of Periscope? I don't even go to Periscope anymore. So aside from doing a broadcast, I don't even go much to Periscope. So I'm on YouTube. Well, I'm afraid Google watching me on Brax was via keyboard. I know in the past I've had a couple trouble getting rid of my Google keyboard or something a little fancier. Google is a jealous ex-girlfriend. Yeah, well, that's a Google issue, not a Brax issue. With all the fans blowing out, all the fans blowing and 2-hour batteries. Is that the T430 blowing batteries? Yeah, but use a Raspberry Pi then. Periscope text is bigger now. I don't really know. I don't even think I updated my Periscope app. I don't really do much on Periscope now. So Periscope is, I broadcast on Periscope, but to be honest, I am not really doing anything much on Periscope. As you can see, my channel here on YouTube is growing leaps and bounds. So, do you think there will be tablets running Linux? Yeah, there already is. It's called PineTab. Pine 64 is making PineTab. So, and there are already tablets running Ubuntu Touch. Some old tablets running Ubuntu Touch. So do update and check the font size is bigger than previously. And why? Why do I need to care, AMG? Is there a reason I need to care? Since I don't really do much on Periscope now. I'm broadcasting on Periscope, but it's not material to my channel growth. So I'm doing it because I have a lot of you who are my friends on Periscope, but I'm not active otherwise on Periscope. So for those of you on Periscope, if you want to learn more about my topic, you really need to look at the YouTube link there, Rob Braxman Tech on YouTube, and follow me on YouTube. In fact, let me just check here how many more we need to reach 6,000. How close are we to reaching 6,000? I only need 35 people. Yeah, so we are 35 people away from reaching 6,000 subscribers. Did you read about the OnePlus data glitch recently? What is a data glitch? There's a Wi-Fi issue on some OnePlus Ones on Ubuntu Touch. What is a data issue? Do update into... Okay, so what am I missing here? Yeah, so I don't know what the data issue is, what that means on a OnePlus One. Any case, so this is still pretty usable. I am using this, although I will experiment with a PinePhone. So I still have some PinePhones left, not much, So I may, I don't know, I may have one or two left. Some people wanted to buy these, so I may have one or two left of these. So they're kind of hard to buy now. I haven't found anything at the same price recently, so they're not as easy to get. So so if you still want the Nexus 5, they're still going to be faster than the PinePhone, and they're really going to be still a good solution to have non-tracking PinePhone left. There's a lot of PinePhones. They built 3,000 PinePhones in this batch. So if you buy a PinePhone now for 150, you will and somebody like you, Donnie, should be able to figure out how to make that work. So yeah, you can buy a PinePhone now. Many people have bought a PinePhone because of me. So yeah, it's if you're a bit of a techie and more of a geek like Donnie is, then yeah, I recommend getting a PinePhone. For the rest of you and don't want that worry at the moment, it's not going to be much different than getting a Nexus 5. So this will be fairly equivalent here. Thanksgiving dinner is the next week for stream. I don't know, Lenny, if I'm going to be streaming that, because I told you that my activities on Periscope is not so critical now. You may not get it until after Chinese New Year. What, the PinePhone? No, I'm going to get it in December. If you order now, you can still get it in December, at latest by January if you're on the tail end of the batch. I imagine they still have a lot of this in stock, so it's only November. So I would imagine if you order in November, you're going to get it in December. I still have my BlackBerry Bold, and I'm going to sell that. So if you want to buy my BlackBerry Bold, which is of course great for just a plain phone with texting and phone and just a SIM card, yeah, it's available, and I am selling it for $50. If you want that, it looks like new. It's excellent condition, and as a base phone that doesn't track you, yeah, I'm reselling it for $50. So if you want the a standard phone, just plain phone for calling, good for texting, and and basic things like weather and play music, Bluetooth music, it will be fine for that. So I have that. Hello, Ankit Gupta from India. Hello. So if you want the BlackBerry Bold, yeah, I have that. It's in my store for $50. So which is what I paid for it a few months ago. So okay, so yeah, so I'm selling that because I'm mostly using the Nexus 5. So the Nexus 5 is still available, and I don't have any OnePlus ones. They've been hard to find. So the easiest one to find has been a Nexus 5. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the Nexus 5 US version is apparently compatible with India, Australia, and New Zealand. So those are the people that ask me. And you do not need any. You have a Nokia N900. It's running Linux. So this is compatible with those 3 countries that I've been asked about on this. So that's good news. This is the standard US. The version that's sold in the US is compatible with those countries. I don't believe this is compatible for Europe. So for Europe, you need a different version. I think it's called the international version would be one you would use for Europe, but for those countries I mentioned, the US version is the same. that will work. Somebody was selling a international version from Hong Kong, so I presume Hong Kong uses the same one that you have in Europe. Do you have any thoughts on the Copa versus YouTube case fiasco? No, I already made a video about that some time ago. I mean, I don't have anything else to say beyond what the video had. I mean, it's a year ago now. Goodness. But yes, so when I do my videos, I have to specify that it's not for children. So yeah, so that's a required thing now based on that settlement. So on all the YouTube videos, we have to check the box, which is good. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. So it's a good idea, because many kids have been subjected to data collection because they're not aware of some of the rules of COPA, and some young kids have been using some social media platforms and have their data tracked as a young kid, and they don't have any input on that. On the other hand, parents have been posting their videos on sucking Zuckbook. Can you turn up the volume? No, I cannot turn up the volume. It's already at the max. You can turn up the volume on your... If I turn up the volume even more, it's just going to get distorted. It's already max here. Okay, unless this is probably because the wind thing is cutting the volume a little bit. Because somebody told me to put this on, so I did, and now that reduced the volume. So I may have to talk right on it now. But we lose viewer subscribers. But we lose viewer subscribers. Oh, you mean the kids can't subscribe to anymore? Well, that doesn't apply to me, so kids don't subscribe to me. So, okay. So yes, so now you want me to talk right into the mic like this. So yes, okay, so I will do that for now. You sound better with that foam. Okay, so I'm going to have to talk this close then, okay? Because I can't make it any louder. Maybe there's a way to make it louder. Yeah, okay, but not at this broadcast. If I use the foam, it looks like I got to increase the volume a little bit. Let me maybe add some gain. Let me just test this, okay? Okay. There. I'm going to step away a little bit from it. That should be a little louder now. Okay. Okay. There. Not so close. It should be louder now. I have a what? I have a Christian faith channel, and yeah, but it's not for kids, is it? So as long as it's not targeted for kids, what does that mean? Does that affect you? I guess I don't understand the effect of it. What's a VPN? What's a VPN? What does that mean? What's a VPN? If you almost in the red distortion range. Yes, that's why I gotta go further here. I don't have it. I just added gain, so I don't have to be so close. Okay, so yeah, I don't think do kids subscribe to you anyway? I mean, they might watch you. As long as you don't target the kids, I don't think there's anything different you got to do. It's really about Google tracking behaviors and putting ads out. There's normal people not wanting to risk a $42,000 fine. What exactly? You're either targeting kids or you're not. If you're broadcasting about kids, and what I'm not sure what the issue is. Somebody needs to explain what the effect is. Receive data across. Donnie's explaining what a VPN is. Okay. Anyway, plug. Okay, this is of course a hot selling product from me, and this is a Wi-Fi router, which now supports wired. This new version supports wired. So if you use this in wired mode and you use a Ethernet dongle on the USB, so if you plug in a USB dongle in here, you can actually route all of your traffic from the entire network and pass it through the VPN. So, including other Wi-Fi routers. So that's the new version here. This has gotten really powerful. It can do VPN, of course. It can do Tor. And this is really the only practical option if you are like normal people. You have a lot of devices. If you have many devices like this, it's almost impossible to set up a VPN for multiple devices. So it's not practical, and you will be left with safety issues. And once your IP address leaks out even from one of your phones, then you will be in trouble. So anyway, this is what you can do. Is dual band MIMO supported? No. No. But like I said, if you want to go wired, you can actually put another Wi-Fi router, and then it can then route everything from all sources, including other routers, into the new version, which is gigabit. So the new one is a Pi 4. This is not a Pi 4. This is a Pi 3 Plus. The new version is a Pi 4. It has a different case, and it's has a gigabit connection, so you can route gigabit traffic from all the routers through it to the VPN. So, might want to start your videos out with a stream of profanity to make it crystal clear to COPA. If you do profanity here, it will just be blocked by the YouTube algorithm. So yes, it's automatically blocked. So anyway, thank you guys, and we'll resume tomorrow. And don't know what the status will be of videos next week because of Thanksgiving. So probably be doing videos at, I probably will, I don't know if I'll have a live broadcast next weekend. Maybe one broadcast. I don't know if I can do two broadcasts next weekend. Probably not. And we'll see about videos, maybe one or two videos. But these products, let me just tell you the products again so you can plan on them for Black Friday. The Wi-Fi, of course, the alarm, the Brack SecureNet radar that can be a perimeter alarm that can cover an area with an alarm. And this will get email notifications as well as app notifications next week. And then my security camera, outdoor security camera, HD with full motion video. And all of these are products that you can find at the store. I also, of course, have these phones, different kinds of phones that you can check my store what's available. But right now I have Nexus 5s that I preload with Ubuntu Touch. So if you want me to preload it for you, I can do that. So the store is available at rob.brax.me. Okay? Did the camera lose weight? It's a lot smaller. Yeah. Yeah, the camera's smaller. iPhone's bigger. Yeah, so it's a lot smaller and narrower, yes. So, compared to an iPhone. Okay, good evening, Kathy. Okay, so these are products you can think about for Black Friday. There'll be this is a cool present. The alarm. This is a very, very cool present to have the Brax SecureNet alarm. So the people who have this are having fun with this right now. And this doesn't need anything, this is very easy to set up. A camera, of course, is a little bit more complex to set up because you got to be outdoors and, you have to do wiring and all that. This does not. So this is actually pretty simple. This can be put in anywhere. So, and then, of course, the Brax Wi-Fi router, which is now Raspberry Pi 4 for the same price. Alarm is $129. This is $129, I think, or it's $139. The Raspberry Pi went up in price, so I can't remember. Is it $139 now? Because the Raspberry Pi got increased. It's like $15 more to buy a Raspberry Pi. Okay, I'll go get it. I'll get it for myself. Yes. So this is a nice little present. If you're looking for gadgets that's safe, then this is pretty cool, and it's of course is a full Raspberry Pi 4. So these are all going to be Raspberry Pi 4. Price is available in Rob's online store. It's nice. You can repair it yourself. It's a Raspberry Pi. It's actually, yes, it's pretty simple if you look inside. Well, there's circuit board. So if you want to look inside, I mean, it's kind of like complex circuitry in there. Okay, it's not a standard Raspberry Pi 4. It's a whole PCB on it. Okay, so yes, and then of course the upgrade to this is the new version with the Pi 4, much faster. This is up to triple the speed of the last version. So this is the speed on the Pi 4 version is a lot faster. Do you have a window sensor? You don't need a window sensor. Put this near the window, it will sense it. This can cover many windows. Many windows. You don't need one window sensor. This will be for multiple windows. Put it in an area, it will cover all the windows. No pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. No. So yeah, the whole point is to not use window sensors. This is a lot simpler than using window sensors. But you two were like, let's strike 2 videos, and then I forgot they were listed in case when I told them third strike equals legal action, accident 1218. I hope our human brain interfaces are mainlining Linux. Raspberry Pi for Thanksgiving is the way to go. So anyway, yeah, so many exciting Raspberry Pi products here, but the change is that some of these products are being converted to Raspberry Pi 4. I guess this alarm does not need a Raspberry Pi 4. There's really no reason to use a Raspberry Pi 4 on this. But this requires a Raspberry Pi 4 because it's faster. It makes no difference on the alarm. The alarm works just the same. What do you eat on Thanksgiving? Turkey. Can it ignore dogs? Yes, if you put metal underneath, the radar will can be redirected. So metal can be aluminum foil, or yeah, if you can actually redirect it, because it doesn't, like I have on my piano, and it doesn't detect anything on the floor because the piano is metal. So yeah, it doesn't have to. Yeah, it depends on where you locate it. So if you put just put foil on the bottom here, maybe tape some foil, and then it should block the lower level. Cookie sheet, well, it's not attractive though, but you can easily put foil underneath and not have it visible. If you tape some foil off the bottom there, it's not gonna. Can I still got your RPI 1+2? Okay, so in my alarm, be waiting behind the window curtain with where's my see? I don't see my my prop is missing. Somebody took my prop again. So yeah, you can have your weapons behind the curtain. Did you make the 3D print? Yes, all of these are 3D printed here. These are 3D printed cases, yes. So I have, 3D printers working 24/7. Since a lot of people buy these now, so we're printing these cases here. 24/7, because it takes a while. Like a camera case takes like a day to print. So yes, so we got 3D print there. Ultimaker? No, I'm using no. What's the brand? Cheap one. Yeah, a camera is about a day to make. So these you can make several a day, but I have multiple printers. I've several printers, so they're all working simultaneously because it takes so long to make one. So the camera takes a while, and then this is a little bit more complex, because if you look at the inside of this, all that circuitry. We have to hand solder that. You can see, So there's a PCB in there and various chips and so on that are. I designed this myself, and we hand solder it here. So this is made in the U.S. Okay, this is U.S. made. It is not made by somebody else. The software's made here as well. Yes, Tyrelent, yes, but if you are not handy with burning SD cards, then you may want to wait till they do it for you in March. But if you're able to burn an SD card, the phone that they're shipping now will be the same hardware as shipped in March, so you might as well get it. If you want them to give it to you all running with an SD card, then wait till March. Other than that, yeah, you want to get it, or just get a Nexus 5 like this and preload it with Ubuntu Touch. It'll be the same thing. Okay. Yeah. So yes, I have an assembly line. Yes, but if you guys buy more, then I'll have to be more serious with the assembly line. Right now, that assembly line is just us doing it, but. So if you guys buy more, then we'll have to change. But we made a lot of these. So we have a bunch of circuit boards already made. So when you buy one, we have to do the final assembly, but it's the circuit boards and everything already done. And the cases are done. So all we do is just do the final wiring and package it into the box, and there you go. So kind of a fun thing, this little toy. It's a serious alarm, but it's kind of fun because it's a perimeter alarm. So you can use it for so many purposes, including figuring out who's walking around in your room. Why don't you make a video on that printer? Why? Is that something I'm selling, this printer? So anyway, yeah, this is all handmade here, hand soldered, and so handmade. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. It's getting late here, so we'll catch up with you all tomorrow. Again, I don't expect to be doing a regular broadcast next weekend. So I don't expect to do a regular broadcast next weekend. I'm sure I'll be able to do at least one video, and then maybe a live stream, one live stream over the weekend. Maybe it's going to be Sunday. I'm not sure. So we'll see where it is next week. Okay, 3D USB powered Asteroid OS. What the heck does that mean? Yeah, these are Linux. This powered by Linux. Okay, so thank you for watching. Keep forgetting that's where the camera is. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow, and possibly only one time next week. Happy Thanksgiving if I don't catch you tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Good night.